All right. Hello and welcome to Backstage with Gig Performer. Today's a little bit of a different week. We're really excited. We've got two special guests popping in this week, Trey Gunn and Robert Frazza, which if you have not heard these names, we are about to send you down an amazing journey checking out some of the awesome music that they have made just in their years and years of playing some great tunes. But if you've been with us the last couple of weeks, we've been diving into the series called Gig Performer Foundations. We've done 4 weeks already. If you were showing up here waiting for week number 5, don't worry. We will be back next week with part 5, where we'll be talking about the MIDI in and MIDI out blocks of Gig Performer. They're super powerful. And you know what? As I was kind of going through getting ready for today, I was like, we are definitely going to be touching on all of the things that we've covered because Trey and Robert are both Gig Performer users. They're people who are thinking outside of the box. They're just creating really cool and really interesting stuff. So if we haven't met before, my name is Brett Pontecorvo. You might know me from Live Keyboardist, but I'm a member of the Gig Performer team. And the reason that I'm here is because I believe this software is doing some game-changing things for people who are creating music live. In the past weeks, we've met our co-founders, David and Neboja, who are, as you can see, both musicians themselves who are creating fantastic music. And today, like we mentioned, we've got Trey Gunn and Robert Frazza coming on today. And so we're going to, I think, just jump right to it because that's what we're here for. So I'm going to pull Trey and Robert on right now. And we'll say hello and we'll okay, here goes. We'll see where we are. So Trey, welcome, bringing in Robert. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Great.
Well, thank you both for being here so much. So before we super jump in, I actually just want to say, thank you for your time, and we love what you're doing here with Gig Performer. So let's kind of just say that again.
We love Gig Performer.
Oh, that's amazing. So can you guys just bring us up to speed a little bit? Like for those of us who are watching who have no idea what you do or what you've been doing, can you give us the synopsis? What's your life? What's your career? What do you do?
I'll go first. I'll be quick. And
okay.
I'll be shocked if anyone here doesn't already know all this, but
that's true.
I play, well, this guitar, maybe you can see in the back, it's a touch guitar. So has 10 strings and I use all my fingers tapping on it. I've been doing it for 30 plus years. Played with a lot of groups, King Crimson for 10 years, Security Project. I work with the Crimson drummer, Pat Mastelotto, in a lot of projects, and I do a lot of my own records. I don't know. That's good. What else?
Yeah. Great. What do you got, Robert? What do you do? What's your story to bring those up to speed if we don't know what you do already?
Very simply, I'm an audio engineer, both live and studio.
Great. Yeah, that's what you guys do. And you're both Gig Performer users using this regularly as a part of your setup.
Pioneers. We might be like the second and third users.
Wow, I love that. So what were you guys both using? Like what was the precursor to Gig Performer? Well, I know the answer is probably very different for both of you, but what was the pre-Gig Performer day look like for you guys?
For me, well, I changed my rig a lot over the years. The thing that I was using, my instrument is specialized in that it's a stereo instrument. So there's bass side and a guitar side. So I've always had this stupidly complex system of basically having to have a whole bass rig and a whole guitar rig. And in the old Crimson days, I used to have a 20 space rack with gear dedicated to the bass side, gear dedicated to the guitar side, but sometimes I'd want to bring them together. So there's mixer boards involved. And but I kind of wheedled it down to the fractal audio, Fractal Axe 2, I think is what I was using, was the last thing I was using before Gig Performer, and a few little extra pedals. For me, I because I'm my own roadie, I just want my rig to be as small as possible. And when we saw kind of some of the things that David was doing with early Gig Performer, I just wondered what could happen, if I could get my hands in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so actually, before we jump in, so Trey and Robert, you guys both played with David, one of our co-founders, who's actually here. I'm going to bring him on in a second with Security Project. Is that where you both discovered Gig Performer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the positives, I suppose, of having a computer scientist in the band. He was watching me struggle at the time. I was using Logic. Very simply, I wanted to record every show.
Right.
And also with Logic, I was using plugins for reverbs and delays and that sort of thing. But with Logic, it was kind of like a 50-50 chance I would actually get the whole show because of the CPU toll it took on the computer. So, if I actually got the whole show, it'd be amazing. And David, because I set the rig up between the keyboards and the drums, I think he was just watching me struggle with this thing. And he's like, I might have a solution for you. And the next day, he basically in the hotel room wrote this recording aspect to Gig Performer and gave it to me. And I haven't lost a show since.
Wow. So, David, can we pull you in? Are you ready for that? Yeah. Okay.
So before we go any further, I have to just correct Robert a little bit. Much as I appreciate the kudos, it was really my development partner, Neboja. And I told him, hey, Robert's having this interesting problem. I think we can solve it with Gig Performer. And he actually wrote that recording thing, not me. Just but it worked.
Yes, it did.
But he wrote that, not me.
Okay. So Robert, were you mixing in Logic, or were you just recording in Logic?
I was just using that as a recording, option.
Okay.
I've been using the Midas Behringer X32 systems, which you're able to record all 32 channels. Gotcha.
And Trey, this was your first exposure to Gig Performer as well? Was playing in the Security Project with David?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I suppose it was probably in between tours. I had to rebuild my rig, so it was in between tours that I actually got my hands on it and started working with it.
Yeah, and did it feel like when you first started using it, did it feel natural? Like, did it kind of mimic enough what you were used to that you felt comfortable?
Like Dr. David Jameson's head. Does that feel natural?
It depends who you are.
But we sorted him out. Yeah, in a way, for me, it was natural. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because there is nothing. Gig Performer isn't any. I mean, I'm sure David would disagree, but it's not anything. It's all about the plugins, and so the plugins that I was using were plugins that I knew, and I had to go out and do some research to find exactly which plugins I wanted to use on certain things, but the program's just kind of transparent. It's what you want to do with it. So
that's the goal. I agree with you. That's the goal, to basically not get in your way.
Yeah.
And what about you, Robert? When you jumped into Gig Performer, did it eventually become your mixer, or was it paired with a board, or what did it look like for you?
No, again, I don't use it as a mixer. I use it mainly as a recorder and effects.
Yes.
Reverbs, something like Security Project. That Peter Gabriel music is so intense. I'm using distortion, I'm using flange and phaser and other things that you normally wouldn't get with a normal console. So it's added to my thing. And what's great, with Security Project, I have tempo information that I can just call up for each particular song,
Yes.
So, I use it in that respect, not as a mixer.
Right. But so like when you're adding these effects, it's like you're sending out of the board into Gig Performer and then back. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. It's giving you, there's like another dimension there because you are able to add the reverbs and you're not worried necessarily about the time sync and that type of a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have multiple sends? Do you have multiple sends going in, Robert? You must.
Yes. Basically, you can, as you know, just route any channel to your plugin. The limitations that I'm dealing with as I, the Midas Behringer stuff is that I only have 6 returns.
So you bring back 3 stereo pair or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Which
So
also my main problem with that stuff is the internal reverbs always sounded grainy to me, which was the fact that I can access Lexicon and TC plugins, that I know and love. I can bring that into the mix.
Mm-hmm. Those are the main plugins you're using for your reverbs?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Same for me. It's the routing. No matter what device I was using, the routing never. I would always run up to some way that I couldn't send the signal path. Or if you're using pedals, you have to do all these cables and you have to make decisions. And with Gig Performer, the routing you can do. There's no limit to the routing, and you can just change it like that.
Right.
So it's great.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like it's become a part of your like thought process? Like when you're getting ready to do something or when you're working, like has it become integrated with your preparation? Has it become integrated with your practicing or does it still exist outside?
For me, it's an interesting question. In a certain way, no, because I feel like I don't have to think about the thing at all because it will do anything. So anything that I can come up with, there's a way to route it and a way to make it. And if I need 19 reverbs, well, then I'll have 19 reverbs. So in a way, I don't like thinking about it. The possibilities actually are literally unlimited to whatever plugins are out there. So it doesn't like other devices where like it only does this thing. Well, then you think, oh, I'm going to exploit that thing. However, the one place where it does make me affect like how I think when I'm working is controlling things and how the widgets work, and that I'm able to like I came up with, here's a great example. I came up with this pretty abstract sound where I have 2 delays that are just slightly out of sync, and I can grab them and whatever I put in will kind of sputter out of sync. And I was able to just with the, it's not the widgets. What do you call it, David? The variations. So with the variations, I was able to make all different combinations of these kind of out of sync delays, and you can just pop from one to the other. I wouldn't have been able to think that up because there's no way to do it in a performing kind of a way. Yeah, you could make the plug-in and do that, but be able to shift from these strange delay settings very quickly. So that's more of a widget thing than yeah. So that's my answer.
Yeah. And Robert, did you have any thoughts on that, or does your rig change from show to show, or do you have something that's very concrete?
For the most part, it remains the same. Again, something like Security Project is more intense,
right?
Because each song is different and requires something else. But generally, it's set it and leave it alone, and don't think about it at all. It's just actually just part of the rig, and if you're powering up, that just comes along with it.
Yep. So, and there's something I think to be said too in either direction that you go, right? Like when something is so consistent that you just know it's there, it's like you become almost a virtuoso with the consistency. And then the other side of it, like Trey, you were saying before, when it's like Gig Performer is transparent enough that you can kind of do whatever you dream up. It gives you both the solidity to kind of become virtuosic in your approach, as well as the ability to kind of say, hey, I'm going to do this time. Or, lets you go in either direction that that you choose, which I think is pretty cool. I do want to mention Trey, you've been doing a podcast with Marcus Reuter that's kind of like really going deep into your projects.
Yeah.
So if anybody who's listening right now is getting like super curious about like some of the things Trey's talking about, would that be a good place for them to head to kind of get some idea about history and all of the tunes? Or
absolutely, we've only put out 5 of the 10 podcasts so far, and there's some really cool and unusual things coming. That, and also, I'll mention Marcus and I did a duo show, our first ever time playing together a couple of years ago. And I went gig performer crazy on it. So we're both using Ableton Live and gig. He wasn't using gig performer, but I was using gig performer. But it was synced up with Ableton Live, and our laptops, our live rigs were set up together. So that also is on. It's on YouTube and downloadable.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Definitely have some people check that out, and maybe we can get a link in the description for people if they're interested in that. But Trey, would you be able to show us through some of your rack spaces? Is that
I can show you? Yes, I can.
Yeah. Awesome.
At your own peril.
Sure. All right, I'm gonna adjust some things here. What would you say, Trey?
I have one queued up, and it's pretty over the top. So, I don't want to labor it too much, but I can show a little bit. So I'm sharing my screen.
All right, I'll pull it up here as soon as
anybody look at my emails.
Okay, I see. I'm going to pop it in here. All right.
Are we seeing it?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, a quick talk through. So this is the input, this is the output. I mean, I'm hoping people have a kind of somewhat general idea of how this works, but this is my bass signal coming in, goes to this Mark Studio plugin, splits. I'm running parallel compressions, so this is a compressor. Then I use a mixer, and then my bass volume, which is I don't have my foot pedals hooked up right now, but the bass volume is this guy, so I can obviously run the volume on the bass.
Yep.
Everything else is the guitar side of the instrument, and it's pretty over the top. I use a lot of mixers because the way the mixers work and the way I like to split the signals. So the first thing that happens is, damn, there's a lot of stuff here. so I'm using four parallel plugins here on the instrument. These are different kinds of distortion. This is clean and this is distortion, and they all come into the mixer. And in this mixer, I'm able to control the level of all these things. So I can crossfade. I can have different kinds of distortion on the left or right, and I can crossfade between clean and different kinds of distortion just based on controlling these faders with pedals or with widgets.
So are you doing those things with variations, or is most of that done in time?
This one I'm not. That's what's so cool about Gig Performer is you can set up variations, and here's one. Actually, here's this delay thing I was telling you that I have these different variations, and they're changing different parameters here. You can see the delay time here. But what's so great about Gig Performer is the ability to set up things so that you can improvise your sounds. So I just have a lot of buttons and a lot of, I have 4 expression controllers, and that's mostly what I'm doing here. And then from this, now I have this blended signal that's either clean or different kinds of distortion. And then I have a pitch shifter that goes into another thing, that goes into a phaser, that goes into a couple of different, finally goes through a couple of different echo and delays. And then one of the interesting things about this patch is, man, it's hard to explain this, but basically I'm also making an audio loop out of my my digital audio converter that I have an external foot pedal on. And that is also controlled by a separate volume pedal. So this goes out to this sustainer pedal, goes out and then it comes back in, and then I can feed that in different ways back in. And so that's the overview.
Yeah. So my question I'm losing you. Hold on here. There we go. So when I'm looking at all of this, the first thing that comes to my head is like, you didn't start there, right? Like that's so complex, right? Like how do you right now, like in your current mindset and your process, like how do you get from, you're in gig performer and there's nothing on the screen to,
here's a simpler setup. I mean, you can grab it pretty quickly. Here's a simpler setup where the bass comes in and then I have some delays. Well, you don't even have to have delays.
Right.
I may even have no, nothing's so simple anymore, is it?
So do the sounds start in the brain? Like where does the construction of the sound start for you?
At this point, I had to do a bunch of testing to figure out which plugins I liked.
Yeah.
And then, because you can save these and build on them, I kind of have some core things that I've already sorted out. Like for example, in the Mark Studio plugin, I just have I only use like 2 or 3 patches. That's kind of my main bass rig. And then, the bass side, I don't know exactly how to say it. I guess I just figure out what I need, and it as complex as my patches are, it's either some kind of delay and reverb, or some kind of pitch shifter, or some kinds of distortion. That's all it is. And so it's just variations on that. And it's a matter of if I want to be able to, I'll just start with something simple, and then I'll decide, I wish I could crossfade between distortion and clean. Okay, I'll set that up. You know what? Now I wish that when I went to this distortion, it was a drier sound than the clean sound. So I'll set up some delays or reverb so that when I'm on the clean sound, it brings up the reverb. And when I'm at the distortion sound, it brings down the reverb. And it just kind of goes from there.
Yeah. So it's almost like you kind of wait for like the tension. You like wait for the thing you can't do, and then you build it. You kind of follow your curiosity when you're building.
Yeah. Although, now I have so many different patches that I already kind of know that why would I just want just a straight distortion sound? I mean, if I'm why wouldn't I want to have the clean option? And also will say that the beauty of this for my instrument is that amp simulators and distortion are effects for me that I always start with the clean sound of my instrument. So even when I'm using distortion, I like to blend in some of the clean sound, which is not possible with a lot of devices.
I was talking with David before we came on, and was, kind of giving him some thoughts about what we should talk about. And he said the way that he says it too, like, right, he kind of gives you like the smile, and then he says, and he's about to tell you a funny story. Anyway, I wait for that when we're chatting, but he said the reason we have more than one channel mixer is because of your suggestion. Like the existence of 3, 4.
Well, and you can see,
David looks like he's saying something. I'm going to pull him in here.
Here's a perfect example. I'm bringing in things into multiple channels so that I can actually, it's really not a mixer. It's a matrix. So I can send things out. These signals are doubled, and some of them are going outputs 1 and 2. Some are going to output 3 and 4. And I kind of just go bananas with that because you can do really, really cool stuff.
Yeah. There's something interesting. David, did you have a thought? I saw you.
Well, no, I just remember we used to just have this single gain and balance control, and that's all we had. You had to create a bunch of them. And I remember Trey just said, "Hey, it'd be really nice if you could have a multi-channel mixer."
Yeah.
And so Naboja added this 8-channel, and then of course we did a 4 and a 16. I think there's a 32. It goes up to 32 now. It's a perfect example. Try doing something. Say, if I had this, it would be easier. And that's very important feedback from various people. That's the same as, Robert, when he was talking about the, recordings. Like, well, this is what I'm trying to do. There should be an easier way. And that kind of feedback is very helpful. It's how you build a thing and grow it.
Yeah, and I feel like I've said this every week, but it's like built into so much the culture of the development of Gig Performer is user feedback, which is very cool. You know, something else I noticed too, Trey, actually from a YouTube video that you did, there was like something in your matrix that wasn't actually being used. And I guess what I loved about it was like, you know, Gig Performer doesn't really put a tax on things that end up not actually being helpful. Like it was maybe a volume fader that you're like, oh, I actually didn't end up using that particular thing.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It gives you,
Yeah.
and it was fine. You didn't have to rewire anything. You didn't have to, you know.
No, but also an empty fader is something you can use in the future too. So you never know. You might want to always split the signal and do something else with it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Actually, I'm gonna put that one in my back pocket. An empty fader is something you can use later.
I do a lot of automation on the not automation. I do a lot of real-time control of the pan knobs too on the mixers, which is kind of subtle live. But for example, if you're bringing in different distortions, I might let's say the clean signal is mostly in the middle and the distortion is mostly in the middle. But as you bring up stuff, maybe I'll widen those two distortions so they spread really wide. And that's just not, you can't do that kind of thing in any other program.
Yeah. It's very interesting what's possible. And what made you think to go there? Was that coming from thinking about what you might do on a record, or were you like, how did
I think a lot of the initial stuff for me was just solving musical issues with the security project. You know, that's when I put this rig together. Mm-hmm. And so there were a lot of things that I was struggling to do on stage that I could kind of do like 60%. And you know, when I got my hands on Gig Performer, I was able to actually kind of up them a bit more. So it was just mostly responding to the musical needs and trying to realize all the sound design kind of aspects live in real time. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How do you get all this thick changing stuff going on? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going to pull Robert in here. Welcome back, Robert.
Thank you.
So Trey and David both run pretty robust, insane levels of sound. When you're sitting behind a mixing board dealing with all of that audio, is it different than dealing with something that's less? How do you handle it? You know, Trey is sending you different panning. Like what's going on for the security project from your perspective that might be different from something else that you would mix?
I think it actually makes my job easier. Mm. Yeah, Trey is pretty much fully realized by the time it gets to me, so I'm not doing a lot. With David, what do I take? 8 channels from you? So,
three pairs of sub and I guess the click for things that have loops.
Right. Just so I can control levels from him separately. Mm-hmm, you know, a piano solo or a synth solo, whatever, I can raise or lower that.
Yeah.
Trey, I have a question. Trey, is your instrument, does that have the bass output and the guitar output, or are they both like Marcus's instrument where it's?
No, I have stereo. I'm stereo.
You are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and I went to mixing the sounds together, not because of you, but because of some sound guys would put the balance all off.
Right.
So I blend them together, and then saves us channels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could do that too, but I always get my levels wrong. So Robert needs to be able to fix me.
Well, you got a lot going on. You're doing all the parts from 2 keyboard players. So yeah, there's a lot going on for you.
Yeah.
I see a question here that I might just respond to real quickly.
Yeah. Which one is that?
About changing I guess it's probably the same answer for you, David, as for me. I just assign a patch or a variation to a program change number. End of story. And
I mean, there's two main ways to just change spaces. You can, if your control surface for your keyboard can send out program changes, then you just assign a program change to each rack space, actually each variation of a rack space.
Yeah.
You can also, if you have buttons, you can learn and just do next and previous if you just want to go up and down. So you kind of have both.
Right.
That's a very straightforward.
And maybe it's not totally clear, but you're not actually loading a whole new thing. All the patches are all loaded in the thing. So as you saw me clicking up and down the left side, all the patches are just sitting there waiting to be called up, and they call up instantly with no glitches.
That's a key piece of the pie. Yeah.
There's no loading. Like if I'm using Ableton Live and I need a new song, I have to reload that song, reload a new song. Nothing like that with Gig Performer. It's all sitting in there just ready to go.
Yeah, seamless.
Yeah. It is completely instant. I feel like sometimes the word instant gets thrown around. There's no delay, no loading, no popping. It's we have a video up on the channel where Igor is he's the 2020 Guitarist of the Year, but he does this one thing that I think is maybe the most impressive showing of what Gig Performer can do, where he just holds a chord and switches between rack spaces.
Oh, I haven't done that. I got to try that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you get just pulled immediately from one sound to another sound. You would never know. It sounds like somebody took audio clips and just put them together. Like, it's exactly like that.
It's sort of like if you had like 8 guitar pedals beside each other and you randomly pushed a collection of them at the same time. Just, without the glitching. Yeah.
Exactly. I want to just explicitly say, if you're watching right now and you want Trey or Robert or David to answer any questions, throw them in the comments. I actually see one coming in right now. I'll pull up
that one, Trey.
I'll take it.
You take it first, because you and I do different things with that board.
The Mastermind GT, I have mine over here. It's amazing. In fact, I saw this pedal years ago and I thought, oh, it's too complicated. It's too expensive. I'm just going to stick with what I've got. And then my friend here in town, John Hendow, he said, no, you got to borrow mine. I've got one. Borrow it. And as soon as I borrowed it, I was like, oh my God, this thing is amazing. And I had to get one. It does so much. I mean, the quick story is the buttons will change patches, but you can also have there's colored lights and you can program the LCDs so you can see patch change numbers, song numbers, whatever you want. And also the buttons are momentary switches, so you can have them. Sometimes I'll just have, like, when I step on it, the delay comes in or off, or the distortion comes in or off. So it works great, and it's pretty darn easy to make it work with Gig Performer, I think. Wouldn't you say, David?
Well, I use it in a completely different way to you. So I didn't have one either. I thought it was very expensive. And I remember you basically told me I had to get one.
Yeah.
But what I did, I don't use the banks at all, because what I discovered very quickly, and actually the guy, I forget his name, the person who makes that board, I was in touch with him and he gave me some documentation. What I actually do with Gig Performer, I have a gig script that sends sysx messages to that pedal board that change the text on the labels.
Yeah.
So my buttons, like I think I have the 16. They're all pre-programmed, just CC numbers. That's it, a momentary CC. And then I let Gig Performer do the interpretation depending on what I'm doing. But there's a gig script, which is just a script that runs at the gig level. And what happens is when I switch from one song to another, the gig script will send all the part names of that song to the second row. So they all light up with the names of, verse, chorus, interlude, whatever it is. And other things will light up with, this is the flanger on off in this song or whatever it is. And so you can, and Leslie, and I can kind of look down and say, oh, okay, this is what I have to press here. And then I also have a couple of buttons on it that go the other way. And they send messages back to Gig Performer, which then passes them on to my sheet music reader to change the pages. So I'm doing that from that pedal board as well. So you can get very flexible, whether you create multiple banks, which is what most guitarists do, or you just have one bank and you let Gig Performer do the work. You can do it either way. It depends what you're more comfortable with.
Yeah, I have a second page, not for the security project, for doing solo stuff and the stuff I did with Marcus. I have a second page that I can go to that just controls Ableton Live. So same computer, just a different program running in a different screen. And I can stop and start and mutate and stuff. And then I just go back to the previous page, and now I can control Gig Performer and improvise the whole thing. So
right.
Mastermind.
Yeah, where it really gets crazy then, of course, you can start doing things. And I do this in a couple of places. There are certain songs where when I'll press a button on that Mastermind controller, and I'll have something receive it in a script that will then send an OSC message out somewhere. So you can start to get very sophisticated in what you're doing, just using basically Gig Performer to interpret what's coming in and changing it and sending it out again. So it's kind of a master controller type thing. But that Mastermind is great. I think you've got, 4, you can put in 4 expression pedals and 2 switch pedals, sustain pedals into it. Yeah. It's really nice.
And then this next question about the computer configuration, let me start with that, but David probably knows more than me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm running a Mac. It's a 2015 Mac. There's plenty of, I think it's all about the CPU. It's not really about the RAM for how I use it. Isn't that right, David?
Yeah. So there's 2 things. Gig Performer itself doesn't use a lot of memory. And it's also doing its best to keep CPU cycles down. But in terms of the memory you might need, that's really a function of the plugins you're using.
Right.
So, yeah, it's so if you use a plugin that basically, there's some, I'm not going to mention any names, but for example, you might get a sampler that doesn't do direct from disk reading, and it loads the entire sample. And you can use up gigabytes very quickly of RAM just to hold samples if your sampler isn't able to do direct from disk. Now you can get around that with the predictive loading feature in Gig Performer. If you're following a set list, for example, it will preload and then unload stuff to make room for more. So, but it's really a function of your plugins more than Gig Performer itself. Gig Performer itself is negligible.
And I don't carry a spare computer. I have never had an issue. I think I did the first couple of gigs and then I stopped carrying it around. For a while there, I was nervous. What I had done was I set up on my interface a way to bypass the computer really quickly if for some reason the computer crashed. And I could at least keep playing the bass straight through and Robert would get the bass while it rebooted. That's never happened. So I don't do it.
I carry a spare, but that's because I know if something goes wrong, I will get dirty looks from the other band members. Everybody kind of looks over. So I've never needed it either. And I don't worry about, I don't have it because I'm worried about Gig Performer crashing. I really bring a spare. The operating system, your hard drive or SSDs these days, if something dies or the display dies or something goes wrong with the computer itself, I carry it back up. But I don't carry it because I'm afraid Gig Performer is going to crash.
Yeah, absolutely. It's rock solid. I feel like if your computer is running decently well and you're choosing the right set of plugins, you're going to be totally fine. I see 2 more questions coming in. I'm going to do them in the backwards order because I think it makes a little bit more sense. Anders wrote in. Yeah.
No, you can use any audio interface. I actually have 2 that I've been playing around with. I bought a Zen Audio, Antelope Audio Zen, which is cool because it has lots of ins and outs. But it's kind of big. So I also went to an Apollo Twin UA Audio. I thought I might try their plugins. I don't really need them, but that interface is great. It's even smaller, so small is good, and anything works.
Yep. I've got two interfaces. I've got Focusrite Solo, and then I have a Mo2 M4, and they both work beautifully. Yeah. All right. This guy, let's see here. Brandon, what are people using for sheet music chords lyrics apart from the chords lyric page?
Okay. So I used to use the first product that our company made was called Scorsurer, which was a sheet music reader, which we had for a few years, and it had some very nice features, particularly for live performers. Like you could tap with your fingers and just start writing on it, and it was very useful. We never really did a great job marketing it, and other products were starting to come out. And when we decided to switch to Gig Performer, ultimately I gave up and I started using something called Fourscore. Fourscore is very nice. It's missing a couple of key features that are very annoying that we had in Scorsurer that I haven't been able, as an end user, I've asked them several times, please implement them, but they haven't. But basically, what happens, the way Fourscore works is I'll select a song, it will send a program change into Gig Performer. So I don't change the rack spaces or the songs from my controller, I change them from my iPad. And it sends this a program change into Gig Performer, which then sets to the next song, and it's pretty good. It's a very good manager. They haven't quite thought it through for live performers that do the kinds of things that I do, certainly, but it does work very well.
Yeah, it's cool when we were talking just like over the weeks about how Gig Performer just creates opportunity for everybody to be able to be a part of what's going on. It's like this is a key example of how we can bring in Ableton Live and have Ableton Live talking to Gig Performer, or Fourscore controlling your part changes. Just lots of possibilities. See here, got a question for you, David. Do you use this interface?
The answer to that is a very definite yes and no. My main audio interface when I'm performing on tour is RME, which actually Trey turned me on to. I have an old UFX that runs over USB, and it gives me 8 audio outs, which is really nice. I have used Gig Performer with the X32, and in fact, Robert uses the X32 as an audio interface. That's how he connects a Gig Performer to the X32 for doing all the effects. That works absolutely fine, especially if you want to actually do mixing stuff. But it's not what I use in my own rig. I use an RME 19-inch just stuck in my rack.
Yeah.
Hey, Robert, does that mean you don't use an audio interface, a separate one?
The console is the interface.
Oh, so you can just plug Gig Performer right into the console.
One USB.
I didn't know that. That's
got a USB standard thing. It comes with it's a 32-channel USB interface. Yeah, it works beautifully.
That's great.
I want to leave openings if there are still more questions, but Trey, you're right now. You're about to work on a course, a modes course that I want to mention and talk about a little bit. I guess certainly like people would love to know what it's about, but this is the third one that you're doing.
I think it's the fourth year we've done it.
Okay,
I've done it. I do the first course in the fall, and then there's a follow-up second level course in the winter.
Yeah,
and it's a 9-week online course that we do it. It's not we don't meet in real time. So I have people who can do the course, have regular jobs, and live all around the world. And I send out information every week, and we work on practices every week. And then we have a couple of Zoom calls. But the basic of it is we're using the context of the modes learn all the sounds of all the 12 different pitches within their context is kind of the short story of how we look at it. So it's a very unusual take on the all the different pitches and how they fit together and what they sound like and how to improvise with it. And it's I will just say it's fantastic. And the responses I've gotten, the experience that people have had. Look, there's Victor. See, Victor just popped on.
Let's see.
Victor's one of the guys who had an awesome, amazing experience going deep into the sounds. That's kind of the short story. The long story is a 9-week course.
Has it evolved over the iterations of it?
It has not that much. I don't want to say I kind of nailed it the first one, but I found a form that would work to basically the way this kind of information. Okay, I don't want to go very long, but the way it's been presented and the way I studied it, 98% of it's absolute crap and doesn't work.
Yep.
And doesn't it's giving information, not experience. So I figured out a way to start with experience, and then people have experience with the tones and learn to get to know them like friends at a party.
Yeah.
And then we kind of lay the theory on it. But I have a little bit of a different angle on the structures, and I kind of my even though I'm very Western trained, my thinking and experience with them is more like Indian or Arabic musicians, where there's just all these colors you can use. And that's kind of a short story of it.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're really trying to get inside more possibilities than the theoretical explanation and kind of bring it into the actual playing arena.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. If you want to check out Trey's course, we do have a link for that in the description.
It starts in about a month and it goes for 9 weeks.
Yes.
So
and there's still an early bird discount happening right now, right?
Through the weekend, like 25% off, I think.
Yeah. So now would be the time if you're into it. And Victor thinks it's great. And I guess Michael Jones as well.
And what's one testament that how good it is that so many people repeat the course. So I have it set up where if you want to take the course again, it's a minimal fee. And I've had people do it 3 or 4 years in a row. And I've been through the material now 5 times. It's a big circle of material, and it's every year my experience and my ear gets better.
Yeah. Looks like we've got one more question. I'm going to pull it up here, and then if you don't feel comfortable answering it, I can pull David in.
I think we need David for this one.
You ready, David?
First of all, I have to admit my ignorance. I don't know what a knife cut is.
I'm not sure either. I think he must mean does there's no tail, but there's always a tail.
Oh, okay. So the rack space has 2 parameters that you can use to control how long the audio tail should last when you exit. I mean, if you don't want an audio tail, you just basically move it all the way off. The only thing you have to be aware of, and this is where it's important for plugins to behave well. Some plugins, and this happens mostly because a lot of plugins, they'll test a couple of the well-known DAWs where you never have to do this kind of thing. So, for example, one of the things we will do is we want to tell a plugin, reset yourself, and if you had any reverb or lingering delay stuff, get rid of it all so that when you come back on, there's nothing there. And some plugins do it properly, and some don't, which is very annoying. And whenever that happens, we've reached out to the developers and say, hey, could you fix your plugin so that when you get a reset request, you actually do the reset and clear your buffers. And then once it works properly, once it's implemented properly, you can control the length of those tails from a rack space. There's a parameter on the rack space dialog.
Mm-hmm,
and you also have the option of using a delay or reverb in the global rack space.
Right, that's new in Gig Performer 4. You can do a completely different
Can I not talk about that?
Sure, you can. No, but please do.
Yeah, so you can be changing your essential your racks, but they're feeding into a global rack space that has a delay, so there's never this term knife edge. I think I know what we mean, but that doesn't. Oh, look, he says we answered him, so we're good.
Perfect. Robert, did you have anything to add? You're the sound guy in this. Do you deal with that at all with yours, or that it's all handled by the board, right?
No, all the talk about pedal boards had my eyes glazing over, so I don't deal with any of that stuff.
Fair.
Yeah, but you use an iPad. You control everything with an iPad and OSC.
Yeah.
So you're still doing that kind of control. You're just doing it differently.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to take one more question, and then I think we'll wrap up for the day. This is a long one for you, David. You ready for it?
What's the easiest way to send external program changes? When I do it with the MIDI out and send PC, every time when I change the rack, it's resetting ...
Next one.
At the moment, yeah, it should be on your screen.
Oh, resetting at the moment. I'm using CC plus PC. I just first of all, there's a lot of different ways to send. You don't mean external program changes. You mean program changes to external devices, I assume.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was talking about having external program changes come in. You can do it by configuring a MIDI out block. You can do it by directly. You can do it by attaching widgets to parameters on a MIDI in block connected to a MIDI out block. You can do it from song parts where you can add multiple MIDI events to be sent out. And for the ultimate flexibility, you can create scripts. And now in GP4, you can use scriptlets, which are very, very easy to do specialized kinds of things. So I'm not sure if that answers your question completely. If you need more details, just come to our community forums and ask there, and you'll get lots of answers on the best way to do that kind of thing.
And next week, we're going to touch on this just a little bit because we're going to do the MIDI out block. So David gave you a lot more examples of that, but we are going to go into it.
The other answer is you can use the Helix plugin and blow off your foot controller.
I don't use the Helix, so I don't know anything about it.
Which I do. So it runs fine in Gig Performer, and then you can control everything about it.
So how does that work?
Well, it's just a plug-in version of the foot pedal.
Okay.
It's not when he says foot controller. It's like a guitar processor.
Oh, it's like the Fractal or something. It's
but there's a plug-in version.
Oh, okay. So you use the plug-in version and you don't bother with the hardware.
I'm sure there may be some difference, but the plug-in version's pretty awesome.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. And simplicity is paramount, right? Like if you can create a situation that's more simple, then you can get more complex almost. Right?
There's just so many ways to do it. And I think one of the problems, and I guess we're putting together more and more blog articles, and one of our guys, Nemanja, is doing a great job writing little articles about tips and how-tos, because there's so many ways. It can be a bit overwhelming to do things. There's just many ways to do it depending on your needs. So it's very flexible that way.
Yep. And it falls into your own thinking, right? Like there are options. So something that kind of lines up with your own process, you're gonna stumble upon. It's Gig Performer, I think, is intuitive in that way that like, you come at it with your own ideas about how things should be done, and most of the time that way exists. Or I think it's intentionally built to kind of exist in that sphere. So friends, thank you guys, Trey, Robert, David, for being here. You guys can't see him, but we actually have AJ, who handles all of our Facebook, who does a great job kind of keeping everybody in the loop. AJ's here too. AJ, thanks for being with us as well the whole time to support. Thank you guys for being here. Trey, you also have a book that's about to come out. We're going to link that, or maybe it's already out.
We did
link
a
that
first
in your
pressing,
description.
it sold out, and now we're in the process of making a second pressing. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants one, they better buy it.
That-
We're not going to do a third pressing.
All right, there you go. So there you have it. Check it out. And Trey, people can connect with you through your modes course. Robert, if people want to ask you more questions or get in touch with you, is there a way that they can do that, or are you?
I'll give his phone number. I'll give out his phone number.
Well, I'm going to put that in the chat for anyone who needs it.
Please. RobertFrazza@gmail.com.
Okay, yeah. So if you've got some specific questions for Robert, if you're kind of thinking more along the lines of what he's doing or are curious about that, definitely do reach out to him. Let's connect with Trey on his modes course. David, thank you for your time. Don't forget, friends, we'll be back next week to continue our foundation series, doing MIDI in and MIDI out. Oh, and here's Gig Performer reminding us you can also find Robert at the Talent Group. All right, friends, have an awesome day. We'll see you next Thursday. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll touch base soon.
Thanks, guys.